Welcome to GrowthCast, the podcast where we explore the latest in web design, digital marketing, and business growth strategies. I'm Keri Rosemond, VP of Operations here at TheeDigital, an award-winning web design and digital marketing agency based in Raleigh, North Carolina. Today, we have a special guest in the studio, Corey Quinn. Corey has an impressive 25-year career as an entrepreneur, sales leader, and marketing executive. He's now dedicated to coaching digital agency founders, and he recently authored the book, Anyone, Not Everyone, which focuses on escaping founder-led sales through deep specialization. Corey, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me on the show. I'm super excited to be here.
Great. Well, I am really excited to hear your story. Would you like to tell us how you became an entrepreneur?
Absolutely. I would say, I started my entrepreneurial career really young. I was about 6 years old when I was recruited to be a freelancer. And the job that I did was as an actor. I was a childhood actor where I starred in the world's first ever Chicken McNuggets commercial for McDonald's. And then I went from that. I did a bunch of other commercials for large brands, big national commercials. It was a lot of fun. Eventually went back to being a normal kid, decided not to pursue a career in the entertainment world. But I got my start pretty early. My first real taste of entrepreneurship was right after college. My best friend and I, we raised $6 million to launch a .com business way back in the end of 1990. And so I got to be the CEO of a company. We grew it. Unfortunately, that folded a couple of years later. And I eventually found myself in the agency space. I've been in the agency space now about 18 years. And I started off in sales. I love sales, kind of made my way up through the sales department. And then I became a sales manager. And then was really excited and really wanted to learn about marketing and how to market, how to do marketing for businesses, a B2B marketing. And that led to ultimately a chief marketing officer role at a company called Scorpion. It's a digital marketing agency. And when I joined in 2015, we had, 100 employees, and we were doing $20 million in revenue. It was a success story by any stretch, but I was brought in by the CEO, the founder, who really wanted to grow the business bigger and faster. And so my job as the chief marketing officer was to take this, like I said, 100-person, $20 million agency and grow it. We were eventually able to grow it to over $150 million in revenue in 6 years. So from 20 million to 150 million. We grew the number of employees from 100 to 1,000. We grew the number of clients from 1,000 to 14,000. So tremendous amount of growth. We had to change a lot over and over again. We'd have to rethink about how do we lead a team of 1,000 people, and how do we manage all these clients, and how do we grow and continue to grow and maintain profitability, all those great things. So it was an amazing experience for me. I left at the end of 2021, and after that amazing experience, I had a sort of a decision to make. I could either go work for another entrepreneur, or I can step back into sort of my entrepreneurial roots and start consulting. And then now I'm building really a coaching and training business. Along the way, I did write this book, Anyone, Not Everyone. And as you said, it is, thank you. It's all focused on helping agencies who are successful but struggling to really get to the next level. It's a 5-step process to help you to go from being a generalist to a specialist using deep specialization. So that's my passion now. It's my focus. And I love what I do.
It's great. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I saw you on YouTube somewhere talking about how you grew Scorpion.
Yeah.
Or, you and your team grew Scorpion, and that's, I was hooked, and I've been following you ever since. So then
Awesome.
when I was one of the people who previewed your book.
Wonderful. Yeah. You were a beta reader. Yeah.
Yes. A beta reader. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I can't tell you how powerful it is. If you or anyone in the audience, if you ever write a book, get beta readers like Keri, because you gave such good feedback and helped it to really turn it into a much better book than it would have been otherwise.
Well, great. Well, so we as a company went through your book and went through your worksheets and have some follow-up questions for you. So our audience is business owners, not necessarily agency owners, but I really think it's more about scaling a business in general, or,
Yes.
apply to
Yep.
everyone.
Yep. This definitely applies to any businesses. I've worked with software businesses. I've worked with professional service businesses. And the core challenge that the book addresses is finding success by saying yes to a lot of people, but then all of a sudden saying yes begins to be the thing that's holding you back from getting to the next level.
How do you say no to a prospect who's, not in your target market
Yeah.
anymore, or not in
Yeah.
the vertical that you're targeting?
Sure.
It's hard to walk away from business.
Absolutely. And, it is such an important and great question, because I think that we as humans, especially as entrepreneurs, people growing small businesses, that we have sort of an internal bias that basically says to us, like, physically, like, resist this idea of turning away revenue. All right. We're trying to grow, like someone has a check in the hand, they want to give it to us, and they don't happen to align. It's really hard to do. And I think the reality is, so when you get into this situation where you've gone from being a generalist and you maybe built a business by serving a lot of different types of clients, and you realize that to get to the next level, help to streamline processes, to improve profitability, to improve sort of the certainty, let's call it, in the business, you need to specialize. What happens once you go through this process is, some people, one of two things will happen. Either you want to do a wholesale change, and you're just saying no to everything else, we're just moving forward. That's very rare. What happens is, when you specialize, let's say in attorneys, as an example, you go from working from everyone to saying, hey, I really want to work with personal injury attorneys. What it does is, as a business owner, it focuses your efforts, your marketing, your sales. For example, any type of conference that you would go to, obviously it would be an attorney related conference. If you were going to write content for someone, it would be for your attorney target audience. That doesn't mean that if there's someone who is referred to you by a past client or a colleague or whatnot, that doesn't happen to be an attorney in this case. It's really up to the business owner to decide, should I take this revenue, right? Should I, even though they're not in the right vertical market, and I've made a commitment to really build the business around this vertical market, sometimes you have to say yes, right? You have to keep the lights on. You have to be able to make a good decision. But as a result of, over time, really focusing on building up your presence, your credibility, the reputation you have in that vertical market, over time, what will naturally happen is a lot more of the referrals and inbounds will just naturally align with that new vertical. That makes sense?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm realizing maybe we need to explain exactly what deep specialization is.
Yes.
For anyone who's not familiar with your work.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you that the typical way that people will find a specialization in this situation, I'll back up a little bit because I think it's important for context. So, in fact, I'll tell you a quick story of someone, a friend of mine actually interviewed him on my podcast. His name is Alex. He is an agency owner. I'll tell you the ending, which is that he is a very successful agency business owner. He has an 8-figure business. But in the early days, Alex was a generalist agency. He was a generalist business owner. He would say yes to anyone. When he got into business, he was just excited to have clients and to build a business. He would say yes to the local attorney, the local CPA, and the local furniture store down the street. He even built a website for the local ice cream truck guy, right? He just saying yes to everybody. It was great. And he was happy to be in business, but as the days, weeks, and months and years went by, he built a business that was serving way too many different types of businesses, which caused the business to be every client was one-off. Every client was bespoke, a new project. And he told me in the interview that he would be going into sales calls, like sales meetings, going and meeting with this business owner. He'd have to scratch his head saying, does this person need cases? Do they need leads? Do they need new patients? What is the result of the marketing, right? Yeah. And as a result of that variety of different types of clients, he was unable to create any real repeatable process that would allow him to get his business to the next level. And that's when he decided that he needed to specialize. And so what he did was he specialized in the medical industry. And one of the key decision points for that was he had to decide what industry did he actually care about? There's this idea of, sure, you want to pick a vertical market or an industry that's a lot of opportunities, a lot of businesses, but what people miss is this level of care about really just giving a damn about the audience, about the people that you're serving. In the case of Alex, he chose medical practices because he felt that it aligned with his values and his beliefs that he wanted to help people in the medical industry because those people really help people like you and me every day. That was really important to him. And I think when it comes to deep specialization, the work is really about, yes, choosing a vertical market based on the size of the market and any kind of client data, but also you need to give a damn. Like what I take my clients through is I have a give a damn gauge. The reason why you have to give a damn is because do this really well. You're going to be spending a lot of time with these folks. You'd be going to their conferences, joining their associations, writing content for them, maybe even launching a podcast and interviewing a lot of those types of folks, right? So you really are going to be immersing yourself. And if the thought of spending a lot of time with attorneys doesn't really excite you, then you're going to have a problem in the long run. So for real longevity, you really have to give a damn. And that's the core of, I think, of deep specialization, is not just scratching the surface, but really almost from an identity perspective, thinking about really becoming a part of that industry.
That makes sense. We'll always work with local nonprofits, even though that's not technically one of our verticals, just because we really like those feel-good projects.
Yes, that's a great example. I'll give you another example if you'd like. There's an agency owner. His name is Luke Egebraden. And Luke, his vertical market is the construction industry. Now, the construction industry has a 5-2 problem. That came from Mike Rowe, who used to be the host of the TV show called Dirty Jobs. And he said there's a 5-2 problem, right? Yeah, the 5-2 problem in the construction industry. For every 5 people who are retiring because they've aged out of the role in construction, only 2 people are coming in. And so there's this widening gap of demand for workers in blue collar jobs, specifically in construction. And Luke, the owner of Phaser Marketing, who again focuses on construction businesses, he knows this because his clients are challenged with not having enough employees. So what does he do? He actually starts a nonprofit. He starts a charity raising money to raise awareness of careers in the construction, in the blue collar sector. He gives one of those big paper checks to students every year who don't go to college, but they go into the trades, right? So he's effectively going out and raising awareness for it. So he's not just paying lip service to the fact that, oh yeah, we specialize in working with construction companies. He's really demonstrating that he cares about that industry, that he's doing something to help the industry move forward in a big way.
Interesting. Thanks. Yeah, you got me thinking what can we do?
Yeah.
Our agency to give back. And how do you handle employees who don't want to work with the same vertical all day long when you transition to deep specialization?
It's so good. It's so good. So theoretically, over a long enough period of time, you're going to be building, let's say, websites for attorneys. That could get a little bit tedious, right? And so the way to keep it interesting is you're going to have to give them pet projects. You have to give them extra projects to work on to keep the interest going. So that's the end of the day. That's the only way I've seen agency founders really address this in a meaningful way, is just give them a day a week where they can work on different types of projects.
Okay, that's a great idea. Thank you. How about businesses who worry that focusing on one area will limit their growth? So
such a good question.
It's a little scary,
such a good question,
right?
Right? I think the one thing that really ignites commitment by founders and businesses who are considering specialization is when they do the math. So the kind of math I'm talking about is going out and saying, if we're only going to focus, let's say, on plumbers, if we were going to focus on that, what is what they call the total addressable market? So what that means is, how many potential businesses are there that we could sell to? In the world of plumbing, I'll ask you, Keri, see if you have any clue. In the United States, how many residential plumbing companies are there? I would probably guess a million. It's 157,000 of these businesses across the U.S. Okay. And which may seem like a lot, may not seem like a lot, but if you were able, as a result of focusing in on them, let's say you said, okay, we're going to just focus on plumbers, and we're going to dedicate ourselves to making sure that we're driving as many new plumbing clients as possible. And after, let's say, a couple of years, you've closed 1% of the market, just 1%, tiny little piece of the total market. You would have 1,570 plumbing clients. And let's just say, for example, that if you charge $10,000 a year, simple math is you have a $15.7 million business, just at 1% of the total addressable market. And guess what? Because you're serving the same client with the same product, solving the same problem over and over and over again, you're both going to get really good at serving plumbers because you're going to know that problem really well. And you're going to be able to operationalize your business much more because there's a lot of repetition in there. So that means your margins go up. And so not only do you have a $15.7 million business, you have a very profitable, easy to run business. When founders do that type of math and say to themselves, well, would I actually like to run a $15.7 million business that's very operationally driven, that is very profitable? Does that excite me? Some people would say yes. I probably would say yes. Most people would say yes, but some people would say, no, I want to run $150 million. So that's it. You have to run the math, right? And so, but that's the thing that really ignites the commitment to this approach is you have to run the numbers. And when you run the numbers, that's when you become committed.
Yeah, we're all about processes and routines and making things kind of second nature. We have meeting cadence, we have our onboarding down pat. And so I can see,
so smart,
when you focus on one vertical, can routinely do the same right things and not have to do as much research and learning like you do when you take a totally different type of client.
That's what we did. That's what we did at Scorpion. I mean, internally, we wouldn't say this to our clients, but we would talk about this conveyor belt where every new client would go through these 15 steps that were the same 15 steps that every new client would go through. And we engineered it so that they would have an amazing experience. But the reason why we knew that they would have an amazing experience is because we were able to optimize that process so well by just doing it over and over and over again.
So that's the perfect word right there. We can optimize their experience.
Yeah, right. It wasn't that every client went through a different experience. It went through the same exact experience. So that was really important.
Okay. So now on the flip side, what do you say to a client that says, well, you have 20 of my competitors as clients already. How are you going to make us stand out and build our business?
It's such a good question. And it comes up I think it comes up more in certain industries than others. I know for instance, certain attorneys are very territorial, competitive. And then other businesses, honestly, like manufacturing, there's not that, you don't have that same that same challenge necessarily. And so the standard response to this, and obviously every business is different, but the way that you could approach this, if you haven't figured out how to tackle it, is by letting the client know that you limit the number of competitors in a specific market. So let's say you are targeting St. Louis, Missouri, and you are targeting personal injury attorneys. As an example, you could limit the business to say, we're only going to work with 3 personal injury attorneys. And that makes sense because there's 4 spots on the map. And we know that there's, enough room for each of our clients to really be successful using our methodology and our approach. And when you have a client coming in, or a prospective client who's a personal injury attorney in St. Louis, and they say, well, I'm not comfortable working with my competitors, you can let them know that you have a policy and that you have a way to keep their information separate from their competitors, that you only limit it to 3, but that there's an option, depending on how you want to run the business, there's an option that they could potentially buy out the market. So if there's no other attorneys, you want 3, they could potentially buy all 3 spots, right? It's a little more expensive. They can get exclusivity. That's one way to handle it. And the other thing I would recommend is not necessarily bringing this up in the sales process, because most people don't really care that much. But when you make it, when you say, you introduce the idea in the sales process, you may bring more attention to it than you need to.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. Can you share any examples of businesses in other industries besides agencies that have been successful with specializing?
Absolutely. So one of my early clients after I left Scorpion was HR software business. So a business that provided HR software to businesses of all shapes and sizes. They had clients, everything from sports arenas to retail clothing stores to restaurants, and you name it. And the challenge they had was that they were a small company and they had to spread their marketing budget really thin. It was like a peanut butter strategy. Like they had to try and touch all these different verticals, all these different buyers. And of course, they were competing in the HR software space. There are massive companies, multi-billion-dollar companies that they were trying to like get some share, like market share away from. So it was really difficult for them to compete, really difficult for them to really drive any kind of visibility and momentum when it came to building the business. So as a result of working together, what we uncovered was that they actually had a lot of clients in the multi-location restaurant business, like the chain restaurants, And so as a result of identifying that they have great clients in that vertical market, that they have those clients retain a long time, they're very profitable, all the stars are aligning, we decided to really focus on building out that part of the business. So instead of marketing to everybody, they just marketed to multi-location restaurants or chain restaurants, of which there's only about 1,000, right? So all of a sudden the universe was like really, really small of all the potential businesses that they could target. So what did we do? They went to specific conferences. We started writing content for the restaurant industry. We launched a podcast series for the restaurant industry. We got to know the big influencers in that space. And as a result of all of that, the awareness went through the roof and they were able to build a much more substantial business based on that specialty and that specialization.
Awesome. Do you have any general advice for growing a business?
So I'll share with you some of the things that we did really well that could be helpful for the audience, which is, and this may or may not work extremely well for every business, but there's some really cool things we did. Number one, when I arrived in 2015, they were doing 20 million, but they were subsisting on inbounds. And inbound mean people raising their hand and saying, "Hey, I'd like to talk to you about solving my problems." That's good, but you can't really control the volume of inbounds, right? And so as a business, if you're dependent on inbounds, you're sort of dependent on, what happens in the market. There's another channel that we had to figure out in order to have more control over our, exactly, outbound. Exactly. So what outbound is, well, when you think of outbound, when you say outbound, typically people think about cold calling and cold email. The challenge with that is that is just a very low return on investment type of activity. It's just a lot of cold calling to get a good meeting and so on and so forth. So it's not a great strategy for most businesses to do because it is very hard to get right. One of the things, and we were the same, like we tried with cold calling and that didn't really work. One of the things that did work for us and ultimately was a big catalyst for our growth was that we started, instead of just cold calling, we would send a gift ahead of a cold call. And not just any kind of, logo tchotchke type of pen type of thing. What we sent were gourmet cookies to high value prospects before we ever even reached out to them. They didn't know who we were. We sent this amazing gift. And as a result of receiving the gift, their typical resistance, on the cold call went from, a lot of resistance to, "You're the ones that sent those cookies? Oh my God. We love those. Those are so good. Hold on, let me put you through." Right? So we won them over by giving them a wonderful gift without ever meeting them first, right? And so we figured this out over time. We really realized this was a unique strategy that helped us to get sales meetings with high value prospects. And it went from really a brand new idea to generating, literally helped us double our business. And it ended up driving 50% of all of our new revenue came from this idea of gift-based outbound, which is absolutely wild. The good thing is that it is a repeatable process. that any business can deploy for themselves. So that was a big aspect. Yeah, of course, the other one, and you probably could tell by now, I'm a huge fan of specialization. So the way we were able to grow was that we went from vertical market, which was originally just attorneys, to home services, to franchise, these different vertical markets that allowed us to really grow really quickly because we had a formula for doing that. And we just repeated it again and again in each of the vertical markets.
I was reading somewhere about your outbound gifting
Yeah.
program, or that it's very methodical in your
Yes.
tracking. If you structure it and maybe you use HubSpot for tracking everything, and that I would imagine it would be pretty effective. When we think of it, send a gift, and I think you actually have a process around it.
Yeah. 4-step process.
Is that true?
Yeah. Yeah. It is. It's a repeatable. And if you follow the steps, that challenges people. They want to skip the steps. And so when you skip the steps, that's when you don't get the outcome. But yeah, basically there's 4 steps. The first one is the building the list. People, they want to skip past the list, right? They just want to like put together a list quickly. And unfortunately, if you do that, you run the risk of finding out the hard way that the people you're sending gifts to should not be receiving gifts from you, meaning they're too small or they don't make sense for your agency or your business. That's number one. So building the list is really important. The brief way to talk about it is there's a book by Chet Holmes called The Ultimate Sales Machine. In that book, he talks about your Dream 100. And your Dream 100 are the 100 businesses that you would love to have as clients in your business. So whatever those 100 dream clients are, that's a list of people that you'd probably want to send a gift to. So that's where you would start. That's the list. That's number one. Number two is choosing the right gift. You can't send something that's boring or everyday. You have to send something that's like interesting and striking and unique. Gets people going. That's why gourmet cookies are great, because it gets you to be like in the moment, you're present, you're eating these cookies, and then guess what happens? The phone rings. Step number 3 is you have to follow up. So that's a step that people miss, is that they think they send these amazing gifts and they're going to call you. They don't call you. You actually have to follow up on the gift. There's a whole process around follow up. There's scripts and formats. And then the fourth one, which is really the most surprising thing, I think, is that you can't just send one gift and be done. This is a 3-year strategy where you send a gift, and then in the next quarter you send another gift, and the next quarter you send another gift, and you keep sending gifts until you get the meeting. Anyway, that's our proven strategy, and we figured it out, and I really codified it after I left the company. But it is extremely powerful.
And I would imagine we could implement that in HubSpot. I don't know if you've noticed they have that new prospecting tool.
Yeah, I did notice it. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, me too. That's all about the outbound.
Exactly.
We're a digital marketing agency. We're all about inbound, but setting up your processes in the prospecting tools, so your salesperson, when it's time to sit down and make calls, it's like they're already there.
It's the best. You don't want your salesperson trying to figure out, who do I call next, right? You want to be able to just log in, see a queue. Okay, this person got this gift. I have to follow up with this prompt and this script. If you provide that to salespeople, they're going to be much more productive than trying to dig around the CRM to find like the next phone call they need to make. I mean,
yeah, or have yet another spreadsheet to track everything.
Right, exactly. And the spreadsheets are a good place to start, but ultimately, you need it in the CRM so you can actually run reports against it and get some insights out of it.
So I think in HubSpot, you would set up your target, your 100 businesses would be your
Correct.
Target list.
Tag them.
In HubSpot.
Yeah, target list.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then you could put the quarterly, you could set up an automation.
Exactly. You would tag them as received this gift. And then as a result, when they receive the gift, you could do some sequences, reminders, or you wouldn't really want to automate the follow-up. You do want like one-to-one.
Oh, I mean like reminders. So
reminders. Exactly. Yeah. But yeah,
I think it would be easy to send all these gifts and then forget to call them when it's fresh in their mind. So
that's what happens. Or another thing that happens with my clients is they send out 40 cookies and they start following up. And of course, when they follow up, they get sales meetings, and then sales meetings turn into opportunities, and those turn into new clients. And the founder who's doing the follow-up, they can't get to the other follow-ups because they're so busy dealing with the new opportunities. And so they drop off the rest of them. So it's really important to make sure that you're time blocking all of that follow-up.
Great stuff, Corey.
Yeah, thank you.
You taking this time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I would love to, for your audience, I would be more than happy to offer a free copy of my book. It's an audiobook, the audiobook version. And it is the same audiobook that's on Amazon that we charge for, but it's for free for anyone who wants to check out the book. There's also a bunch of worksheets, which I know you've been through, it sounds like, which is wonderful.
Great stuff.
All that, thank you. All that is available if you just go to anyonenoteveryone.com. You can go there and you can get access to all of that stuff for free. If the conversation that Keri and I are having right now is resonating with you, you want to learn more about the 5 steps and how to really go deeper with this idea of specialization, it could be a great resource for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Keri.
Well, thank you everyone for tuning in to TheeDigital's GrowthCast. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to follow us for more tips on growing your business online. Have questions or need help with your own business? Visit us at TheeDigital.com. Thanks for listening.